And look, I actually find it hard to understand here because, like, on one hand, you say it's very important for anyone to be autonomous,
Yes.
and also it's very important for everyone to be very cautious. Like everybody should be really aware of their autonomy, and then they should be autonomous. Like before you should be autonomous, you should be aware of what autonomy is. But then who is the judge? Like who is the judge who will say, well, you're aware enough and now you can be autonomous and your autonomy is good. Like your exercise of autonomy is good. Like for example, you talked about two people creating an app which is going to influence like the entire globe. Those two individuals, they probably think that they're aware enough, and maybe even their society regards them as people who are really educated, people who are really doing a good thing for their society, and so they're creating this to assist their society, to help their society. And other societies in other parts of the world, for example, they might find that really offensive, and they feel like they're being attacked. They feel like they're not even in need of this. But because they don't have any other options, this is the only option. This is the only option, and it's being imposed on them. So first, who is the judge? And second, like at what level can we say this person is aware enough and this person is conscious enough, and now they can have their autonomy?
Yeah, I think this is good. I think in earlier time even we attacked this question indirectly, but I would say I think the sanctimonious level of the self, moral high ground on the self itself, I think we human, we don't have that capacity to say that there is a self has all the options, or let's say all the capacities that are able to make all the calls or the choices, can be good and bad, can able to master all of them, or can decide like this is morally good, or this is good and this is bad, for example. I think autonomy, if you put it on the table, autonomy on the context of a subjective level, autonomy would be intellectually weak in the objective views. I hope you can see that, meaning that when it let's say autonomy is intellectually weak to the concept of over collective common good, or the commonality of the social interest, for example, because autonomy will have a disagree views on the common good on the context of a society. Autonomy will say, individual, you master your home. Nobody should point for you to master what you need to do inside your home, for example, or within yourself. So that's meaning that autonomy is kind of giving the human the more independent multiplicity of the choices, where call yourself, because by the definition of we human, you're making at the point of free will and the faith, for example. Free will, if you believe in a free will, that's a free autonomous perspective. I think so, because the free will exists, that meaning the autonomy existed. Free will meaning I have to make my own choices. I have to choose what I think is good. So the autonomy will say that the same thing, you have to choose what is good for you. That meaning you already have a prior clear moral high ground, which is that able to tell you that this is supremely good choice, you choose it among the others, and you will be responsible on that choices perhaps. But if you say like the free will is itself, it's not the free, and it has to have, their rules have to be existed to free the free will itself, then I think we are in a box where we can't see the end and we can't see the beginning of things, and this will be more complex, more challenging view of life and understanding things. But it's obviously that the self itself, the autonomy of the self itself, is not a self creations. You know, if you look at it.
So are you saying both the society and the individuals are the judges of their autonomy, of autonomy in general? I mean, I really okay. I mean, I totally understand what you're saying, but then, I mean, I can, go outside, or I can start using my autonomy and hurt others, and say, well, this is my autonomy. I'm actually exercising my free will, my autonomy, and I'm doing this because I think this is good for myself.
Yeah,
Now, somebody else might say, no, this is not good because it's hurting others. It's hurting the society. It's hurting me. Now, here we need a judge. Like, we need a clear line. I mean, on Roberto's side, I think the judge is God. I'm not sure if
No. I think if I may, I think we kind of having a very over finalization views with me and Roberto. So we're concluding to say like, yes, commonly we agree that there is a God, there is supreme power there. But we are talking about the intervention of that power or the natural power, because when you say human self create its own rules and policies. Human self in the society, it has to be exist to a way that to abide the collective rules even. But those collective rules sometimes go wrong. That's what I'm saying. So that's why there's a necessity of the choice of having the autonomy existed, because we have example of a politician. We have example of the people, technologically, they can create something that can drive entire human society or the humans in general. So if we just like follow things, always we just abide with the rules and process. Abiding rules, I don't mean like saying is always bad. No. We need to abide what is the good rules, you know. Okay.
No, wait. Again, that kind of gets back to my point here, which is like the good rule, according to who? According to the judge. I mean, is it the society that decides this is good and everybody should follow it, or is it the individual? Because we will have a conflict if we say this is the individual. We're definitely going to have a conflict with the interests of the society. And if we say this is like the judge is the entire society, also we're definitely going to have a conflict because like the entire society is not going to be okay with the autonomy of, for example, one individual. I mean, okay. I want to hear from Roberto, and then I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Roberto, who is the judge? Like, okay, autonomy is there, freedom is there. We're created by God. Now we're here. We want to exercise our freedom. Who's the judge? Should we follow? Like, who gives us orders to follow?
I think you know my answer. So yes, there is a God, and God is the judge. In a general and even theological perspective. I think we don't have problem with that, at least with Omar. But my point, like to connect a little bit our ideas, is that, okay, I believe God established, at least in our world as it is right now, civil authorities to act as civil authorities. I am not saying that they are
following
following, or they are good servants of God. I am not saying from that point of view, but yes, even the existence of civil authorities and their roles are influenced, sadly, for the existence of evil. It exists, it is a fact. So they can make rules that are even against the eternal law of God. Yes. Okay. So there is a clear difference. So why can I say that the rules are good or bad? Only if there is an eternal law which dictates what is good and what is bad. If not, there is no way. There is no, I cannot say my moral point of view is going to declare if what these civil authorities are doing what is correct or not. Or even the existence of something that is bad. From my point of view, only we can establish if there is something good and if there is something bad in terms, I don't know, in the light of what is the word? Immovable, that cannot be changed. There is eternal law that God gave. Second,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to say something. Let me see if I remember.
That's okay. But I want to ask you a question about
Okay,
the.
okay.
But okay, what if that eternal law that is given by God, and the civil authorities are ordered to follow that and exercise that on their society. What if that eternal law conflicts with an individual's autonomy or an individual's interest? Like, for example, not everybody in the society will have the same color. Like, I'm not talking about color, but I'm talking about like their interests.
Different.
In a society, you'll have a lot of, well, not even like a society. Let's say the entire globe, we come from different cultures. Having an eternal law that will be applicable to every society in the world, like, for example, having an eternal law that is ordered to be applied in a place like America, would definitely not be the same eternal law that would be, or at least from my perspective, I think it would be impossible to apply that same law to African communities in Africa. So what if that eternal law conflicts with like certain interests of some societies?
I think that God, as creator,
Mhm.
as the creator, knew perfectly what his creatures needed, how they should behave. Let's say, again, an example. If I am a father and I tell a son, this is good and this is not, I think there is a huge difference between the perspective or the interest of the father and the son. But now we are talking about the creator who knows, who can create with his word. So, it is, for me it fits perfectly that his perfect law will apply perfectly for his creation. And it doesn't change. We are talking of one person in America or one person in Egypt. Actually, I will give simple examples of transcripts of his eternal law, a description of his eternal law.
Right.
I said at the beginning that this law reflects God's character. So it says, honor your father and your mother. And other words, but if we establish or we think about this commandment, again, I will establish something. If we follow or we obey that, this is good.
Very nice.
If not, this is wrong, or this is bad. If we obey this commandment, okay, if we disobey this commandment, I will introduce this concept. Now, okay, the concept is sin. Sin is transgression of God's law. This is the definition. But what I was going to say is that at the end, if we are going to be judged, clear requirements need to exist. And this is my point. So if we talk about honor the father and the mother, if we talk about you shall not kill, if we talk about, I don't know, do not commit adultery, if we analyze the law, we are going to come, or at least from my side, to see no, we will not have conflicts between individuals.
But okay, I really see what you're saying, but then now, I mean, I totally understand the point about like honor your father and mother, or do not commit adultery. I think those are really good laws. But then there would be other laws, like for example the one that says, here I'm trying to quote scripture. and forgive me if I quote the scripture wrong, but there is I'm not sure if this is a verse, but the one that says you can kill your neighbor if they work on Sabbath. Do you remember that one? Okay, so to me, that's like the law of liberty conflicting with some autonomous interest that an individual is making for themselves. Like an individual is going to work on Saturday, and the law of liberty says no, you shouldn't work on Saturday. And as an individual, I want to work on Saturday. Now that's a conflict. Now this is just a small conflict. Maybe an entire society, if we go through this, we'll have like social conflicts, not just individuals conflicting with society. But then the point is, like Omer here says, well, as a society, we should sit together, make a law, and try to be as inclusive as possible to include everybody's interests, and we should call that the law. Everybody who's respecting this should exercise their freedom and also their autonomy. And here on this side, you say no, the law is already given. Everybody who fits in this law, that will be good for them. Now what if somebody says no, I don't want to fit in that law? And what's the point of the law if it's just optional? Like if you want to follow it, follow it. If you don't want to follow it, go. But we know that you're gonna have bad things. I mean, to have a law, I think it's important to apply it, and we should have an authority that the entire society supports, and also everybody thinks that they're fully represented in this law.
I think, if I may, I think generally we say that we're human, we are sentient being, we are conscious being. We are much different than other species or other animals. You have a capacity, a process of thinking and able to make choices, I think. And our mind is a little bit more functional than others, I think. But to that context, meaning that there are certain things that basically they are negotiable things. For example, like the abiding or, let's say the commandment that you mentioned about the parents, for example. I think this is the basic thing. I always think like, there are things I don't negotiate, I don't discuss even, I don't talk about it, because I think this is normally there within the self, within the collective levels. Self, or human, me as the human being, it's abiding and complying with the being nature of the human itself, that you need to respect your parents. Those things that, whether being revealed by the theological revelations or by the humans' rules or social, civil authorities' rules, or perhaps, in the end of the day, they are basic foundation of everything to define the humanity itself. To that point, then we move to the other complexities. The topic is not about challenging the basic human stuff. I think we are more on the wider level of the influence level that is coming up. That is self trying to say like there is one self saying like I have a moral supreme power to influence all the human beings. For example, I don't like a politician. We are having an example of the app that can drive, for example, the TikTok. It has an algorithm that can drive the entire nation to the specific directions. So if it's being in the hand of the politician, those who are really dictators, I think they would drive us in a way that is very much crazy. That's what I'm saying is, in this context, the autonomy has to be existed, because autonomy is the self-aware and the self-legislator as well, meaning that it defined that this things is bad and this thing is not, you shouldn't be, let's say, follow it. And it shouldn't be said like this is a good dimension of the humanity itself to follow up. So to this ideas, autonomy needs to be existed. To this point, autonomy not need to exist. It's to say like I need to challenge the basic. I need to challenge 1 + 1 = 2. Autonomy does not go with that. I think autonomy is even this. We already have the idea of the let's say free will. Free will is the basic foundation of understanding what is meant to be a human, because there are free will concepts. There are fated stuff. Fated stuff, it is prescribed things. oriented directions, what is commonly being defined or reflected by God through it. In the end of the day, autonomy has to exist in every level of those. Even if something godly mentioned, autonomy has to be there, meaning that autonomy has to make itself. Like, for example, I always recommend people, regardless of their beliefs, I recommend people always check before you believe, understand. Like, I'm talking about persuasion rather than the ordering or commanding, abiding the orders, for example. You don't need to follow the orders literally, even if mentioned with a very high trusted sources. You don't need to just comply with. You need to have a level of the persuasion within the orders. That means that there is a conscience existed, there is the self-awareness is imposed there, and that you will be responsible to the choice that you make. And then it will be more convenient when you're being punished on those calls that you have. So that's mean that this is the way we live our life, and this is the way we're going to be master. And I think this is the way we enjoy the sense of being human. So.
Okay.
I can answer.
Sure.
I think, okay, first, clearly 100% for sure there is not such statement as you can kill your neighbor if you want.
I apologize.
It's very, very literal.
But maybe I can explain what he wanted to refer to,
Sure.
not making,
Okay.
so that he doesn't look like he just mentioned.
I just made it up.
I mean, he had a point, but first we need. I want to be clear in something, and this is there is a difference between a moral law, an eternal law, and what we are talking about in this conversation, and other type of laws, whatever you
Whatever you want to call them.
you study or
Great.
refer to as your example. So if we go to for example, to the 10 Commandments as Moses recorded, he wrote, it was okay. We have a scroll that Moses wrote, but in his story in his writings, he said that it was the voice of God saying these 10 commandments. Also, God writing these 10 commandments with his hand. Actually, if we go more deeply, the scriptures present that to Moses it was being shown, let's call it temple. This is called sanctuary or tabernacle in heaven. It has some parts or some sections, let's call it like that, in heaven. So he saw that, and he was instructed, you are going to do as a tabernacle following that pattern. This is I am telling what the scriptures say. I am telling a story. My point is, there was a very, very special emphasis in both sanctuaries, in the one that Moses built and the one that he saw. And there was in the most relevant place, so for avoiding a deep explanation of this element, but there was a special place where there was that law situated, both in heaven and on earth. Okay. It contained the 10 Commandments. So I come back again. Moses wrote what he heard, and many people heard by the voice of God himself, and what also God wrote with his hand. I am telling what Moses wrote. Maybe people will not believe it or not, but I am just telling the story of that Moses wrote. But my point is that why it is relevant, because it is very, very different, this moral and eternal law, than, for example, civil laws and ceremonial laws, and even health laws that we find in different parts of scriptures, and especially what you were referring, that were laws for a nation, for a specific nation, and in some characteristics, or not saying those words, because there is not such a statement, you can kill your neighbor if he does such or such thing. But yes, it is true that there were laws about the Sabbath.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe maybe if you want to argue or discuss about a controversial point, we need to start with the correct statement,
Yes.
because this is the
Exactly.
wrong statement. So I will not continue in that direction.
Okay.
But maybe just to finish. So yes, understanding the context will help us to know that there is a huge real difference.
Yes.
That's why for him it is clear. No, but this is logical. You shall not kill, and not commit adultery, and that's what I believe from my point of view. This eternal law is perfect.
I think
Okay. I wanna say one thing, and then I'll give everyone a chance, and I'll definitely